it's really nice to see a mix of businesses present. Just obviously I work for Snowdonia-Active up here in North Wales, and I'll give you a bit of background as to how the project came about. We've done grant funded work for Visit Wales for a number of years, promoting and developing and working with businesses to improve the outdoor activity offer in North Wales. But increasingly, if you like, that outdoor activity offer has softened slightly in terms of the types of businesses that we deal with. And increasingly, we're looking for new ways at which people can engage with the outdoors, so that we make it, make sure there's something for everyone, basically, and make sure that we showcase the best of what we have to offer here in Wales. And so we were sort of thinking about what we wanted to do next. And for those of you who don't know about Airbnb Experiences, they were launched in 2016, but they were only launched in cities initially. And they only became available sort of throughout the country in 2018. So we haven't had many seasons of operation. So I still think they're sort of fairly not particularly well known. So we were aware of them when we started looking specifically at North Wales and North Wales's listing on Airbnb Experiences, and was sort of slightly disappointed to see that actually there were a lot of experiences from Liverpool, there were lots of experiences from Chester, from Shropshire, and felt that, you know, if you were searching for North Wales, we didn't really want experiences from elsewhere cropping up. And we proposed to Visit Wales that we would like to do some development work to improve the showcase of North Wales on Airbnb Experiences. And so we started Curious Cymru. And the idea is that we work with businesses and we curate a suite of experiences which showcase the culture, the landscape, the environment and the people of North Wales. That's not to say that there aren't other sorts of experiences on Airbnb, but it's just the ones that we work with, it's that sort of nature of project. So very much the sort of responsible, sustainable ones with the true sense of place of Wales and North Wales in particular. The idea is that we work directly with businesses, we tell them what Airbnb Experiences is about, and then we work with them to create new, novel and engaging products. And the one thing that we're finding is actually it's being a real driver for new businesses, for people who are just starting out. It's a perfect platform for doing that. Now, initially, we're asking for them to be launched on Airbnb Experiences. However, you know, I think quite a lot of these experiences might migrate off in the future. New ones will come along, but it's that business development work. As long as there's new bookable product out there going forward, then I feel that we've done our job. I mean, I actually think a lot of them will stay with Airbnb because the feedback I'm getting so far from businesses from the platform is that it's working very well for them. So linked with that then, because there's a lot of startups and a lot of very small businesses, they often don't have the time to generate the visual content to make it look really stunning. And certainly for Airbnb, a lot of it relies on images and increasingly on film on the platform. And, you know, if you've just got a lot of snapshots that aren't particularly well chosen, it doesn't really, you know, what we want to do from our point of view is for people who go on Airbnb Experiences page and just go, oh my God, that all looks amazing, you know, and really be blown away with the quality of what they see. So we're working with filmmakers and with photographers to work with those businesses to make sure that their listing looks as brilliant as possible. We're then also working with social influencers to come and try some of the experiences and do Insta takeovers and Facebook takeovers for us, and that's working really well. And we're linking in with some of the other Visit Wales marketing like the Wales Way. So I'll probably come to that a little bit back to front. I should sort of tell you really what an Airbnb experience is. And I think it's really going back to the really foundations of what Airbnb is like. And that initially was the holiday like a local. It's that insider's guide, that sort of really the opposite to corporate. It's that local host, that local experience, something that you wouldn't get if you just turned up in an area and had a look in the sort of, had a quick browse in the tourist information. It's finding the more niche experiences. I'll mention at this point as well Airbnb Adventures. I'm not going to dwell on that for too long. Airbnb Experience is a one-off experience, and it's just the activity itself. Airbnb Adventures links it to accommodation, so you can book a package of accommodation and activity. There are some legislative issues around that with the package tour regulation. So if there's anyone who's interested in Airbnb Adventures, just get in touch with me afterwards and I can talk you through some of that. It's easy enough to sort or get round, but I'm not going to dwell on that tonight. I should say at the beginning as well, I'm really happy to be interrupted as we go through. It makes it much nicer for everybody if we can just sort of break my talking up a little bit. So if you've got questions, then please just chip in. That's fine. I'll address them as we go along. So in terms of the experiences, then they are this holiday like a local idea, and so they are only offered for groups of 10 people or less. That's the maximum you can have on at one time, because it's all about forging interaction between the people who are on your experience and also between you and the people who are attending, and they're particularly keen on that side of things. The one thing I should say about dealing with Airbnb actually is I've been quite reassured. We started off this, I sound like I'm an advertisement for Airbnb. I'm really not. I'm just telling you the experience that I found as we've gone along. They are quite strict in their criteria, and I've known them throw out quite a lot of experiences that have been submitted because they don't fit their criteria. And I kind of like that, really, that they're being true to themselves and sticking to their guns in terms of what they want on their platform. And I am finding that they are true to that. So they're for groups of 10 or less. They're delivered by the host. So, you know, you can't put your business on there as hosting the experience. It has to be you as the host. You can say that you also run a business, but it's actually the fact that it's you that they're going with. That has changed a little bit now in that you can offer an experience and there can be a team of you. So 3 or 4 people who might offer experiences. So if you're a company and you want 3 or 4 of your staff to be able to offer experiences, they would have to register as hosts, but then you can link them to your experience and they can also offer the experience. The other thing I would say at the beginning is that you do have to be prepared that if you've got a space for a group of 10, or that you specify your maximum number that can do your experience, maybe you only want groups of 4. If you get a booking for 1 person, you have to honour it. So we'll come back into talking a little bit later on about pricing and how you price your experience to ensure that if you end up running for 1 person, that you minimise the losses to that. The way that I say to do it is price it so that if you run it for 1 person, you would make a small loss, but if you run for 3 or more, you're making a significant profit. And actually you hope that on average throughout the number of times you offer it, you make a profit more often than you make the small loss. But I can see why they do that. You know, it would be very disappointing if you in all good faith booked an experience and then the host contacted you and said it wasn't going to run because there weren't enough people on it. It's to prevent disappointment, really. The other thing that I'll say up front is that the commission taken by Airbnb is 20%, which is significant. I don't think it compares particularly unfavourably with other booking platforms. What I say to people is you work out what you want to earn from your experience and you put the 20% on top. So actually you are taking home what you want to take home out from that. What you're getting for that 20%, and this is where I think that it really works as a platform, is that if you, for example, were running an experience next Saturday and you'd put it on the platform 3 months ago, in those 3 months up until you offering that experience, people who are booking accommodation who are in your area on the day at which you're offering the experience will get emails telling them about your experience. So you're getting very direct marketing of your product to the Airbnb accommodation market. And they're people who are going to be there looking for things to do on that weekend, which I think is is a significant advantage. And as I say, I think does seem to be working quite well. So, for example, instead of you having to rely on people using another booking platform, this is actually physically being emailed into the inboxes. And I've had it myself. I've had emails as somebody who uses Airbnb occasionally. I've had emails in the past 6 months which have said what's on offer in the Bangor area, and I've looked down at the bottom and there's been 3 or 4 of the experiences I've been working with marketed on there. So I've seen it sort of firsthand that does work. So in terms of what they're looking for, they want it to be led by a knowledgeable and passionate host. That's what you're selling. The guests take part in some sort of hands-on, or they're immersed in an activity, or it might give guests access to a special place or a community, and it gives them a unique perspective of the area, really. This is a screenshot. This was taken in December and I'm sorry, all my presentation is North Wales focused, but I hope you can see the relevance. These were all the experiences that were visible on the platform in December. The ones with red crosses are the ones that aren't in North Wales. They're in Liverpool or Chester, so they're not even in the area. The ones with green circles and ticks in are the ones that we've developed with the business and have put on there. So you can see we've significantly changed the offer up until December, and given that we've had a very odd year last year, and that in the middle of the year during lockdown, Visit Wales told me to stop all activity, so we weren't being able to do anything proactive. Since lockdown lifted, businesses have been quite keen. I was saying to businesses when we started that I didn't feel that many people knew about Airbnb Experiences yet. It was going to be a slow burn. They were early adopters, but to hang in there, because I thought bookings would pick up. And then we had lockdown, and lo and behold, the businesses who got experiences on prior to lockdown, as soon as lockdown lifted, had bookings. And since then, I would say the bookings have been pretty good. And I think now this coming season, assuming that people are allowed to holiday and are able to holiday in the UK again, I think Airbnb Experiences are going to be really, really popular. So the other thing I would say is that the peak time for booking Airbnb accommodation is January, February. That's when they sell most or make most of their bookings. So for any businesses I'm working with now, I'm suggesting that they get their listing onto the platform as soon as possible, because without being on the platform, you can't get bookings. There's a sort of stages process to getting your listing on there. You obviously have to formulate your experience. You have to go through the application process of submitting your idea to Airbnb, which can be a little convoluted and a little difficult. We do find up until the summer of this year, I was dealing with the head of marketing for North Europe for Airbnb, which was brilliant because she was based in this country. Unfortunately, they've had a massive reorganisation. A lot of staff have been laid off. And so now we're dealing directly with America. And there is a little bit at times of computer says no. And we have to then go in and find out why that experience has been rejected. In some instances, it's because the host has accidentally just ticked the wrong box and the algorithms just chucked them out and said no. But we can help you work around that to try and get through that system. So you submit your experience, hopefully you overcome any issues, you get it accepted. It's not then visible on the site until you submit dates. And I think a lot of people initially were thinking, well, we'll put dates on for 2 weeks' time. Actually, ideally, you need your listing on there for about 3 months at least, so that it's visible, and treat it like a shop window. There's your product, there's your business on Airbnb Experiences with lots of people browsing it. I would make sure you get as long a lead-in time as possible. So once you put dates on, it appears on the site. So I'm now telling businesses, or before Christmas, I was telling businesses, make sure they got dates on for half term and for Easter. And if they can't, even if they've just formulating their idea, if they can get it submitted and put dates on for later in the summer, get it on there as soon as possible. It makes no sense to wait.
Can I ask a quick question and give you a second to take a pause of all the wonderful information, Emma? When people are looking at putting lots of dates out in the future, and there's probably people in the room that kind of going, oh, my activity might be weather dependent or this and that. How easy is it to, once you have that customer, to be able to move it from the Friday to the Saturday so it'll be a better experience for them? How easy is it to be able to adjust as you normally would taking a booking on going, they might have booked for Friday for, one thing, but actually Saturday is going to be much better for something slightly different. So that's what they end up having and everyone has a better experience. Is that possible with Airbnb Experiences?
Yeah, so Airbnb's policy is that obviously they want you to honour the booking unless absolutely it's not possible. They recognise that weather is a factor on outdoor activities. And so if the weather is such that, or the forecast is such that it looks like it's going to be unsafe or not possible to run, then you are able to cancel and a refund will be given. However, they do ask that actually before you cancel, you actually try and rearrange another date with the customer. And that's their preferred option. So yeah, I mean, that it's all set up to allow you to do that.
Wonderful.
Seems to work quite well. Yeah. What they will do is if they find you are a host who is cancelling too often, then you've only got so many chances to do that before they say, hang on, we don't want you on our platform anymore. So there is a little bit of that, but as long as you're reasonable, make an attempt to rearrange, and if you don't rearrange, you only cancel unless absolutely possible, absolutely necessary, then you're okay.
Okay, sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Anybody else got any questions?
Yeah, I just wondered, do you have anybody, if sometimes we've had to obviously like move bookings or whatever, or had to cancel, as things have been. And if you've radio silence from the guest the other end, we have like a superhost line that you call direct and things can get sorted. Do you have that, or is it missing as something that you would like in terms of experiences?
Are you asking as
just what is there any feedback from a business has found it okay, just sort of like what Paul's point, just skimming around people and they haven't
finding it okay, actually. I think I've not heard of any problems. I think it's quite early days in that the number of actual experiences people have run is still quite small because we've had such a funny year, but the ones who have run have had no problems.
That's good to hear, because sometimes there's a bit of a bone of contention of people not feeling as supported and have kind of a go-to number sometimes. But it sounds like there's quite a lot of wiggle room already in the platform for rearranging and all that.
I think there's enough in the platform to make it okay. I mean, it was something that people were scared of. What I do when I'm developing experiences with businesses is we tend to think around their options so that they make it possible to make it as wet weather friendly as possible, whether that means by looking at alternative location or whether that means that they've got some form of cover that they can operate under.
Yeah, like you say, it's how you present yourself and the word you use. I know we've done surfing and paddleboarding experience things here. Obviously, when we couldn't surf, we took the kids paddleboarding. They offered us that option, that kind of thing. When there wasn't any waves, you kind of make sure you word it, I guess, to cover yourself, that you'll get some sort of experience, but it is weather dependent.
Yeah, and I sort of say to people, right, I've got somebody who offers outdoor yoga, but there's actually there's a polytunnel on the site, but quite a nice polytunnel, and actually they can roll the sides up so you can still do it without getting wet, and still get a feeling of the outdoor experience. So it's just making sure that they think through those, because obviously it's not in the host's interest to cancel. You want to, if you've got the bookings, you want to come to run it if possible. Right, I'm just reading one of the questions here about.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Dawn has asked.
So you do have to be quite precise. They want to know, you want to give your guests as much information about what they're going to do on that experience as possible. And I do tend to, it does need to be precise. If you've got more than one sort of experience, I would list them separately and just offer separate dates. And people will see, and just choose which one suits them. There's a little bit of flexibility on that in terms of, perhaps if it's a cycle ride, you might say we'll offer a route in this area, and that gives you a bit of wiggle room to choose a different route and a number of options. But on the whole, they tend to be quite specific in terms of their listing. Does that answer your question, Dawn?
Dawn said yes, thank you.
And I've seen that Belinda is with us, and Belinda is one of the businesses who's in North East Wales in the Clwydyn range, and I'm going to let her speak for herself, but first of all I'm going to actually play one of the films. So we have been working with a filmmaker up here. Now, when I first started this project, only particular businesses could upload film onto their listing. In the course of last year, they actually made it possible that anyone could submit film. However, they're quite strict in the guidelines as to how you film and what you film. So we worked with a filmmaker, and it's been a bit of a testing ground, really. He came and worked with 5 businesses and did some lovely images and shot some film, and we submitted it to Airbnb before Christmas, a little bit nervous, I should say, of whether they were accepted or not. I'm pleased to say they have accepted it. So if you look on Airbnb North Wales now, you'll see that quite a number of the experiences now have lovely films on them. So Chris, who is the filmmaker, did some editing of the film that he'd taken. You have to take it in short snaps for Airbnb, and you have to upload the raw footage. You can't edit it in any way. But Chris has developed from that some short sample films, which the businesses can then use outside of Airbnb, and Visit Wales can use as well. So I'm going to play Belinda's one, so that explains all about her experience, and then she'll have a chat with you afterwards.
Hi, my name's Belinda Gannon, and I lead mindfulness retreat walks in beautiful North Wales. The walks are aimed at reducing stress, increasing resilience, and a sense of connection with self, others, and the environment. Well, for me, mindfulness walks combine things that I'm really passionate about. So they combine walking, being in nature, and practicing and teaching meditation, sharing all that with others. For me, brings a meaning to life that I find hard to beat. It has to be experiencing the cumulative effects of the different meditations that take place in the most amazing surroundings that North Wales has to offer, really. And it's wonderful to be part of that and see how the whole thing unfolds for the different people. So I lead guests out into the hills, woods and woodlands and valleys of different areas of North Wales. And there's a range of meditations that are done either sitting, walking or standing. And they're each focusing on different senses. So, for example, touch, sound, and sight, and taste. In each walk that people book on, you'll get a full itinerary of the route, so it'll describe what you can expect in terms of terrain, length and duration, the climb, the total climb as well. But also there'll be a full kit list. But typically, you'll need good walking gear that will enable you to be out for either a 3-hour trip or a 6-hour trip, depending on what you choose. So I will bring along group shelters, just in case we want to get out of the weather for a bit, group first aid kit, and I usually have some spare layers with me in case anybody's forgotten to bring something, which I'll give out at the beginning of the walk. It really does feel like a real retreat. You may be only out 3 hours or 6 hours. There's a friend of mine who came on one of the walks who is a regular meditator and used to go on retreats that may last a few days or even a week. And she was really, really surprised to see just how deeply she felt it. She said it just feels like you really have gone on a whole retreat.
Thank you. So, Belinda, you're there, I believe. I can see you. Would you like to say a little bit about your experience of experiences?
Hi, can people hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much, Emma and Alec, for inviting me to come along and join you all this evening. Just a kind of a bit of a background about my business. I'm a sole trader. My business is called Way of Mindfulness, and I offer, amongst other things, mindfulness retreat walks, mindful navigation days, and maybe coming up scenic singing walks. I have to thank Emma for that name. I started my business in August 2019, or if you like, I got it off the ground then. I was 8 months into my business startup phase when the first COVID lockdown happened. From the tourism side of my business, so the mindfulness retreat walks, the last September to December, I was encouraged by the activity that I had. I had started my marketing and publicity from scratch in August. And by the end of last year, I put on 4 mindfulness retreat walks with 9 participants attending the December one. So that was before Airbnb. Last year, when I attended the Airbnb Experience seminar that Emma put on, initially I felt, because of the stage I was at probably in my business startup, and I don't necessarily consider myself to be primarily a business person, I did find that I felt a bit overwhelmed at the thought of going through the process that Emma described. It seemed to involve, at first glance, a few more steps, not least of which was a submission of my proposed experience, and having to apply for that experience to be included on their platform. To be honest, at the moment, it's too early for me to tell whether it's going to be successful or not for me. I have no data yet because of COVID, unfortunately, not necessarily anything to do with Airbnb. Also, the phase I'm at in my business lifespan, the fact that I'm a completely unknown brand at the moment, well, almost unknown brand at the moment. And yeah, COVID just has really got in the way for so far. At the moment, I have 5 experience dates that are on my page. They're all based in the same location. So under Emma's advice, we picked one route or location and applied, submitted that. And then once I'd got the application submitted, I then eventually put dates on. So I've got 5 experiences, which is apparently a bit of a magic number in terms of starting to pick up viewings from your page. Obviously, because there's very little data at the moment, I've had one inquiry, which is, in actual fact, for some reason, that person found my own website and has since booked through my own website for some reason. I'm not quite sure what. It may be possibly the dates that were offered on Airbnb that didn't suit her and the person she was coming with. I think that may be it. But what I have done is I've kept an eye on the Google search results. And yesterday, the Google search result on the phrase Airbnb Experience Mindful Walks North Wales brought my experience up on the first page, 4th from the top. So I was quite encouraged by that. That may be because I put a very specific search phrase in. I don't know. In terms of what I've had to do to modify what I'm doing, my activity, so that it would work as a tourism product, the focus of my walks being mindfulness training in the outdoors, it offers ecotherapy benefits using focused attention on aspects of the natural environment in a non-goal oriented way via the senses. As a result, this kind of activity is naturally slower than a normal walk or a normal outdoor activity, which results in shorter walks, less miles covered. So for example, for a 3-hour activity, I might cover 3 miles, and similarly 6 miles for a 6-hour activity. I've naturally been very hooked into tourism, having arrived in Wales only 21 years ago. So yeah, I suppose from a local's point of view, I've probably only just arrived yesterday. The reflective retreat nature of the activities that I put on kind of mean that the sites that I might place the walks in are going to be a little bit off the beaten track. So it kind of automatically starts to put me into maybe a natural Airbnb experience application, if you like. The fact that it's less off the beaten track, and it's something that might be more known to locals. I also try and make sure that I site the walks in interesting places that offer a mixture of different types of terrain, inspiring views that I would find inspiring, and I'd hope then that others would. Maybe historical interest, and for example, where we are in Northeast Wales, it's just littered with Bronze Age and Iron Age sites, for example. That's just one kind of historical interest. Local facilities, so places so it's near a place that offers loos, cafes, and a cultural or other type of activity centre, so it naturally links in with the local tourist economy. So in a way, because I wanted those things for convenience, so that I had things to offer people as I was proposing to take them to more out of the way places, it seemed I haven't had to modify my activities an awful lot. I've got a couple more ideas that I would like to try on the Airbnb Experience platform. So one being the mindful navigation days that I offer on my own site, that so far are kind of geared around the mindfulness-based cognitive therapy side of things. So they would be days that help build people's confidence, help get people out of the head and into the body and into their environment in a very practical way that would actually then give them skills to build their own routes, take themselves out walking and exploring. So in a way, I'm kind of looking at how I might, just pivot that a little bit so that it's more in line with tourism. The most difficult thing I'm finding at the moment with that is just finding the right name to call it that doesn't end up being too long. The other one that I think might work well for the platform, which Emma was very keen to see, was scenic singing. So offering a choral workshop type experience, but in the format of that a guided walk amongst hills and valleys and coastline of Wales might have to offer. So I'm going to have a go at putting maybe at least one of those experiences through the submission process before the Curious Cymru project has finished, and it'd be interesting to see how that actually pans out. I found the process of submitting my experience to Airbnb actually quite easy. The process is all online, but because Emma explained all that initially, that didn't surprise me. She gave some very good advice about saving all of your, just doing a copy and paste of all of so having a Word document open and copying all of the copy that I wrote in the application onto a Word doc on my computer. And I found that really helpful because, of course, then it's been useful to then just cut and paste that into other linked advertising. So it's actually the help, it's another aspect of the help that Emma has been able to offer. The size of the Airbnb platform has meant, means, as is, I suppose, the norm these days, that searching through FAQ pages and resource pages for help with different issues involved with writing and submitting your experience application, instead of being able to talk to just pick up the phone and speak to someone. But of course, with the Curious Cymru project, Emma has been there at the end of a phone or an email or a text, which has really helped speed up the process, as well as encourage my confidence in the whole process. And that factor for me is not to be undervalued, I have to say. The Airbnb Resource Centre does seem to have some useful information about how to develop your profile within their site. So once you've got your experience up on there, you've then got to look at how to develop your profile, so grow your profile, and there does seem to be quite a bit of information up there. Remaining questions for me on that subject really are the kind of how working out. It's very much about within your activity, as far as I can make out at the moment, and I'm not only just doing focusing my working days on the mindfulness retreat walks, because I also do psychotherapy and outdoor counselling and mindfulness courses. But so I haven't had oodles of time to spend researching it. But questions I am looking at answering at the moment are, the activity sits within Airbnb's branding, which is obviously very, very strong, of course. So it's working out how I can make my own business branding within that platform that will match or somehow translate, be recognizable if people somehow come across onto my own platform, what I consider my own website, for example. I feel as though I have less control over that than I would like. I have to be honest. But again, I'm still experimenting with the platform. It's it's a suck it and see for me, really. So I use other event platforms, and compared to that, and then of course my own website, it seems to be significantly less control. But then of course, it's possibly the size of the reach that that may be that's being traded off for. So I'm really going to be interested to see how this forthcoming season turns out, really, in terms of bookings. Yeah, working out how to present my page visually more as I'd like it. So you get your photos, you have to submit any activity photos through their submission process, which is quite straightforward. You just upload them as you would do a normal file on the link provided. It takes a while, and depending on the time of year, i.e. Ideally not before Christmas, it takes a little bit of time, but you get an email, you get notified when it's actually happened, when it's been accepted. But then I haven't worked out yet how to shift the order of in which the photos appear in the gallery. So that's a question I'm going to be researching. So from that respect, and the things that I've just mentioned, it's feeling a little bit restrictive for me at the moment, but that may change. As I say, I don't want to unduly influence people, but I think it's points worth mentioning. The support, though, that is available from the Curious Cymru project, and Emma has, as I mentioned earlier, I've found it invaluable. I've had help in writing and wording my application, not just submitting it, the process of submitting it. And for me, in becoming a little bit more, I'm not a marketing person. So for me, the whole idea of how I would tailor what I'm offering to fit through the application process was really important, and that was something that this Curious Cymru project did offer. You know, Emma has done a huge amount of work on learning the ins and outs of the process. And I have to say that when I did get my application in, it didn't take as long as I expected it to. And when I did get it in, it was accepted first time. And that's, I think, mainly down to the fact that I've had a lot of guidance. There's also, you know, I mean, right down to hand holding. If you ask Emma, it's there really, and I have asked. The video and photographic facility has been, for me, a great opportunity, because I'm a one woman band, and I'm too busy leading the activity when I'm in it. Plus the fact it's a retreat setting. I don't want to be there running a retreat, leading a mindfulness meditation, snapping away at people. It's just no. So the idea of someone who knew how to use a camera to good advantage was an absolute boon. And I think that video, apart from the fact that I hate my hair on it, but I think that video shows that to good effect. Yeah, it was a lockdown haircut, or lack of. I'm looking forward to the prospect of the social media influencer as well, who can be sent out to attend one of your activities when they're eventually running, because I'm really interested to see what any impact that will have on my bookings. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Belinda. Belinda, are you planning on hanging around, or would you like to, if there are any questions for you specifically, would you rather do them now? Has anybody got any questions for Belinda? No, that was brilliant. Thank you, Belinda. That was really helpful. And I think, I mean, you're at one stage in your process, and I've got no doubt that you will get bookings as soon as this chaos is lifted. The other one, oh yeah, so you have got to get, how much is it, £30?
Yeah.
£30, Belinda. Yeah. So get a question from Gethin there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got another experience that has been running from August when lockdown lifted. She just put her experience on when lockdown when we went into lockdown, and she's offering Nordic walking, which there's no other Nordic walking experience in North Wales. She has done amazing business since lockdown has been lifted. She's done really well, and I've got no doubt that you will as well, Belinda. A couple of interesting points came out of that. In terms of your booking and availability, there was a question from Catherine about can you mix people from different booking platforms on the same experience? No, you can't. If you're offering a time and date to Airbnb, that experience has to be filled with people booking via Airbnb, and you can see why they want that. They don't want people paying different prices from different booking platforms or coming in from different booking platforms. However, there's nothing to stop you offering that experience on another day or another time via another booking platform. You just can't mix the two groups. So yeah.
Ask Gemma, I was trying to sort of look at that question a bit more, whether, because the way this study centre is set up, if I'm right, there could be other people at the centre but doing other things. Is that?
Yeah, so
at the centre doing other things, yeah. That's fine, as long as when the host takes that group off to do whatever that group has booked to do, it's only people booked via Airbnb that are doing that experience. The fact that there are other people doing other things at the same time is fine. So yeah, I can't see a problem with that. Sorry, yes, I see you're clarifying it now. In terms of other things, I think one interesting thing you said about going to sort of off the beaten track places, and I think this links quite closely in with the sustainability side of things. We're having big issues up here at the moment. I know you are in Pembrokeshire as well, about sustainability problems around honeypot sites and about everybody going to do the same thing at the same place. So there are, obviously the honeypot here is Snowdon. and there are 2 or 3 guided walks up Snowdon on Airbnb Experiences. I'm kind of surprised. They're the one thing I'm surprised they've actually accepted, because to me anyone can walk up Snowdon, and the guided walk descriptions that they're giving, I'm thinking, well, I'm not certain they're getting anything particularly extra by going with a guide up Snowdon. So that's one thing I have been surprised at. But I had somebody ring me and say he'd got an experience on there for Snowdon, but he hadn't had any bookings. And so I had a look on, and there was somebody else on there offering guided walks up Snowdon at half the price. I said, well, there's your answer. So, you know, it makes, I've got no interest in dealing with other people who want to put walks up Snowdon, because to me it's a self-defeating object. You know, that one person is going to take all the custom. However, in a chat with him, we then talked about other places more suitable off the beaten track where you could go. And because they're small groups, it's not like you're sending loads of people off to sensitive locations. They're small guided groups, so they should be behaving responsibly and leaving no trace. And we actually came up with other ideas for his experience, which, you know, he was far more likely to get bookings for, other than just going up Snowdon. The other thing I would say is that Airbnb now offer a widget that you can put onto your own website to allow people to book your Airbnb experiences from your own website. So, you know, that's quite nice really, because actually as a business you don't want really to send people off to Airbnb Experiences, because they might get sidetracked by something else that's on offer there. So actually, if you know, if it's quite nice if you can get them onto your website and they can book directly from your website, and it looks quite nice, the widget, I have to say. There's examples of that. The one thing you did say, Belinda, which I totally agree with, and it'd be interesting feedback maybe for Anna, is that the help centre and the resources are vast on Airbnb, but they're a nightmare to navigate around. So I've found pages on there that I've never been able to find again. So I bookmark religiously now, and I do download quite a lot of stuff. Yeah, that would be my one problem with them. So thank you, Belinda. I'll carry on. That was really, really useful. I appreciate you giving up your time.
Thank you.
So it all comes down really into really, you know, what's your big idea? The bit I really like doing with businesses is the creative bit about what it is. You know, I didn't know until I'd sat down with Belinda that actually she's a great musician. She loves singing, and that's where we came, you know, the idea of singing in the landscape, especially now. And that's something I think that would get people's imagination, and it's something that's, you know, I think would be quite trendy, in the whole idea of people singing in choirs, but actually now being able to go and do it outside, especially in the current situation, I think would be really good, and actually I can see would be really exhilarating and uplifting. Yeah, it's trying to sort of think out what is the idea. So, and it's also fitting it to the market. So I had somebody else who I was speaking to who was a keen road cyclist, and he wanted to put road cycling experiences on. Now, road cycling is an activity that's quite a specialist activity, and I think you've got to have some degree of confidence to want to cycle on busy roads, and perhaps a tourist coming along, you know, if they're going to come and bring their bike with them, then the chances are they're committed enough cyclists that they don't need to go with a guide, and if they're not going to bring their own bike, then you've got all the problems of bike hire and everything else to go with it, in which case you're going to have amateurs doing it, which then is going to have issues in terms of health and safety as well. But talking to him, we talked about the coastal path along the North Wales coast, which is pretty much off-road, is a cycleway, pretty much it's surfaced all the way along, and certainly at Rill there's a very nice cycle hire shop, and so we talked about perhaps offering North Wales coastal path cycle tours, with the potential for hooking up with a bike hire at the Rill hub, and all of a sudden then you've got a package that you can put together, an itinerary that you can work out. So it's a case of linking up. I had somebody else I spoke to at the beginning, who is an outdoor activity provider, and he's a keen paddler, but having sort of had a chat with him, he's obviously North Wales born and bred, a Welsh speaker, but it turns out that his dad had a passion for Welsh history. He was an ex-miner, ex-quarryman, I should say, and he had a real knowledge and he passed it on to his son, this knowledge and love of the history of the slate mining. And so he started doing heritage tours, paddling heritage tours of the Anglesey coast, which is, you know, a lovely niche idea and something that you wouldn't come across anywhere else. And it's a real insight into the area that you wouldn't get any other way. So that side of things has been really nice, that we've got some novel ideas. I would say, I don't know if any of you are associated with charities. If you are a charity, a registered charity, then you don't pay the commission, you don't pay the 20%. And I've been working with a number of charities to get them to put experiences onto Airbnb as a way of raising money. And one of those, which you might see on the site, is the Walking with Donkeys at Moyler Quay Farm, which has been incredibly popular. And the charity, the aim of the charity is to provide sessions for people with learning difficulties. And so that's where their aim is, but they've started offering experiences as a means of raising some money for the charity. And it's totally changed the way they think about the charity, how they run it and how they run their business and what facilities they provide. But they've really enjoyed doing it. They've met some lovely people, and that's worked really well. So I do tend to think it is important to think about your market, and just because it's something you offer at the moment, either to local people or as part of a outdoor activities centre, doesn't necessarily mean that it'll work as an experience. And there is a little bit of work to be done to sort of hone your experience down so that it will work. I always sort of say, well, you know, have a think about who the average, and there is no average Airbnb customer, but have a think about who it is you're trying to target through that market. And that is one thing I would say about the advertising that Airbnb do to their accommodation providers, is that it is targeted. So if you've got a family activity, that will be pushed to the accommodation, that will be emailed to the accommodation that's more focused on family accommodation. If it's or couples or more active provided, it'll go. So the algorithm's quite selective. So it's not just shotgun marketing. It is quite targeted. The algorithm is targeted. So I tend to think about things that are trending at the minute. Obviously, you can't switch on the radio at the moment or the telly without seeing something about wild swimming. We're very keen to push things that are out of season or after dark activities. I'm desperate to get someone to do offer dark swimming. I've been dark swimming in Llanfadarn up here, and it's an amazing experience. I'd love to get it going, but that was quite interesting in terms of packaging it, because there is someone up here who does, or quite a lot of people who do assisted swimming, which is great. And there was somebody in particular, and I went and chatted to him. I said, well, how much do you charge? And he said, well, £10 for an assisted swim during the day, but he's very much focused at the locals market. And then he was saying, well, actually, if I'm offering at night, I've got to employ my staff for longer, I need more staff, you know, I'm not going to be able to afford to do that. So I was trying to get to him about the packaging of it. So I said, well, you ask people to come for a certain time, you give them a talk about the lake and the wildlife of the lake and what they're going to see, and the fact that it's a triple SI for Arctic char. Then you send them away to get changed into the swim wetsuits that you're going to provide. You then take them down onto the lake, and you have all your assist boats covered in fairy lights, and you have sups there as well. You go off your swim, you come back, and you give them hot chocolate and Barra Brief on the beach. And that altogether is something that you could charge £40 for, and that's not ripping them off. That's providing an experience, an evening that they will remember. And that then means that you can cover the costs of your staff, but it's how, you know, the cost of the hot chocolate at the end of the evening is minimal to you, but as part of making that experience is quite significant to the person who's going to go away with those memories. So it's all about how you sort of put it together, really. Other things that are trendy at the minute, foraging, very trendy. We have now just got this week a cycle ride, foraging cycle ride in Beddgelert. Just go onto the platform. Local food, we haven't really got any local food offers on there at the moment. Craft, I've just got someone this week submitting a jewellery making. So although we're focusing on outdoor activities, I'll happily look at other things as well. Gin, we have a gin ventures walk. So it's a walk with gin tasting after it. So you go on your walk, but you spot the botanicals growing in the hill and you have a bit of a chat about the botanicals. Then you come back and do a local gin tasting. Which is really nice. I'm just going to look about the insurance. Yeah. So in terms of insurance, Airbnb are really hot on making sure that you have all the relevant insurance, and you would need your business insurance. I will talk about accreditation. If you're offering an outdoor activity, then we do expect and suggest that you have the Visit Wales activity accreditation, which is offered through, well, it's developed by Wato in partnership with Visit Wales. If you aren't already set up and have the paperwork and the insurance and the accreditation in place to offer an outdoor activity, I would suggest that you contact either Paul or myself to have a chat about that before you go forward, and we can point you in the right direction on that, if that's okay with you, Paul. I'm just looking now, can you set a minimum number? You can. Yeah, no, you can offer, so you can offer group discounts. So you can set a minimum price that you want to get. So you could say, perhaps I want to offer a group discount of £120. That's what you want to offer. And then depending, if you get 2 people who are happy to book it and pay the £60 each, that's fine. You might have 4 book it who want to pay £30 each, but that means that it's bespoke. If they pay the 120 quid, then it's a private booking for them. So that's the way that they get around that. Again, the group booking, when we started this off, there was no group booking. That's just come in last year. So that's fairly new. I'm conscious of time's running on. I'll try and speed up a little bit. Don't actually know what the time is. Okay, yeah. So yeah, in terms of the process, a lot of this has been covered. Design your experience. We draft a text, as I say, Belinda mentioned, because it's an online form and you click submit at each page, you then lose that text and it goes off into the ether to Seattle, and you've perhaps forgotten what you've written. So I say screenshot every page as you go along, or copy and paste it into a Word document. That just makes things easier, especially if they come back and query something and you can't remember what you've written. So that's good advice. Yeah, in terms of images, make them appropriate to your experience, otherwise they won't be accepted. I had a nice chap who's got a beekeeping experience. I was very keen to get a beekeeping experience onto the platform. He actually wants to run beekeeping courses, but he can't get enough people through on his courses. And actually I said, there's a lot of people out there who would like to just come and put the bee suit on and have a look inside a beehive and hear a bit about the life of bees and how honey's produced. But they're never going to be beekeepers. But actually that's something that people would really love to do. So he went ahead, put his experience on. He's done quite well. He's had bookings and he's really quite keen now. But when he submitted his images, he said, they've rejected my images. And I said, well, what did you put on then? And he said, well, I put a picture of a daffodil on. Well, they're not going to accept a picture of a daffodil for a beekeeping experience. But what they actually did was came back and said, we've got some images that we can use if you haven't got any. What do you think? And actually the image that's on his site now is actually quite a nice beekeeping image. So it's ideal, so it's perfect. So they do try to be helpful. We're waiting till April when the bees wake up, and then the photographer can go and get him some better images. So yeah, check your insurance and safety accreditation. You do have to have it all in order. And obviously you wouldn't want to be taking people out to do things without being covered. And I'll come back to safety accreditation a little bit later. Yeah, and it's not visible on the site until you post your dates. So yeah, a lot of people are keen. They say, well, we offer a day's activity at the moment, so we'll just stick a day on. And actually the day experiences don't sell as well as the half-day experiences. So actually in terms of value for money, in terms of the profit you're going to make, I suggest to people half-day is better than a full day. So, you know, you can always give a little bit of flexibility in that, with the option of them offering a full day as well. But initially, I think you need to offer a half-day experience. Talk about pricing. They do suggest that you put an introductory price on initially, and then as you get rave reviews, then you can put your price up a bit, and they encourage you to play around with your pricing. So start off at a lower rate and then increase it. You do have to be precise about what equipment that you are going to provide. Basically, you want to give your potential person who's booking as much confidence in the product as possible. So you want to answer as many of the questions they might have in their head about what they're going to expect and what they're going to do as possible. So that includes the equipment that you're going to offer. And then just have a little think about your audience. As I say, you have to think that it's perhaps your couple or your family or your group that are coming to the area, and what their interests are likely to be, and what you're catering for a mass market. So anything too niche, you might get bookings, but you're not going to get rich. That's fine if that's not your aim, but it makes sense to make it as broadly appealing as possible, or as doable as possible. You know, it is a mass holiday booking site. It's not a niche specialist site, and so you do have to bear that in mind. The one thing I would say is that we are, Snowdonia-Active have been accepted by Airbnb as Airbnb ambassadors, and what that means is that if you have an idea, and I'm happy to work with anyone although we're based for the project in North Wales, for the next few months while we've still got funding, I'll happily provide support for people in South Wales. And all I ask is that you use this link to get your experience submitted. What that means is actually Airbnb then give us a little bit of money back towards match funding the project, which keeps Visit Wales happy. So yeah, if you are interested and you're interested in some support from us, then please could you book via the link.
Real quick, while you're on that, Emma, how much time do they have left to get in touch with you about this project before you're moving on to something else?
We've only got funding now till the end of March. However, I'm happy to carry on and provide support for a little while after that, depending on what the demand is. But certainly I'm happy to be at the end of the phone. The budget, what I might have to think about is budget for film and photography, and that there's not, if you were to get going quickly and you wanted some film and photography, you know, before the end of March, I'm sure I can have a conversation with Visit Wales, and they may well agree for us to arrange that down there. But there's just a little bit of a question mark over that at the minute. But in terms of being on the end of a phone, I'm happy to do that for this summer.
Well, you've already encouraged people they should have stuff on in January and February to start getting bookings. So that kind of fits in a good time frame there. But thank you.
Yeah, some ideas of example. There's the night swimming. That was a night swim I was on. Absolutely amazing. Local crafts as well. That's another project, a conservation project we were working on, which was building a local slate fence. But those sorts of skills, those sorts of things would make brilliant experiences. If you know, that's where your expertise lies. Yeah, we've already talked about weather. I'm not going to go through that again. You know, we encourage people to be as flexible as possible so that they can make sure that the experience does run. Lots of other things to consider in terms of if you're providing food or not. I would say that you know, Airbnb are quite hot on that. I had one person who had real trouble getting his bushcraft experience on because he ticked the box to say the food wasn't prepared in the kitchen, but actually he got round that in the end. So but you do just have to, you know, they will come back and question things like that, especially the health and safety side of things. Yeah, I'm not going to carry on with that. I've talked about that you have to give them as much information as possible, and really, you know, you have to do a bit of a sales pitch on it. And it's been quite interesting working with different businesses on that side of things. So yeah, you need to give confidence. And you've got to sell the personal side of it, not the corporate, not the business side of it. Yeah, you have to. The other thing I would say, it's a review-based system. If you end up with they give you a bit of time to get going, And then once you've run a few bookings, if your reviews drop below 4.7 out of 5, then your experience will be taken off the site. So, you know, it's based on reviews, and if the quality drops or you're getting poor reviews, then you will be taken off the site. So, you know, if you say you're going to give 2 drinks, you have to give 2 drinks. Otherwise people will be quick on that button submitting a review saying we said we were going to get 2 drinks and we only got 1. You know, that's just the nature of people. However, there is something about keeping something back and maybe giving slightly more than they expected, so you get really, you know, positive reviews, leaving that with that really good feeling. So that's always a good idea as well. Yeah, and just give them a sense of what they're going to expect at each stage, really. Yeah, more availability you can offer, more opportunities there are for guests to book, and as I say, a longish lead-in time is ideal. Yeah, play with your pricing. I've already talked about that. And also you can play with cut-off times. So there's obviously a balance to be had between allowing it to be as open as up to as close to the time at which you offer your experience as possible, so you can take into account those last-minute bookings. However, you know, if you're really worried that you're going to get a booking for 1 at the last minute, maybe you want to put your cut-off time a little bit further forward in advance of the activity actually happening. It's up to you then but you've got a bit of flexibility to be able to do that. So you can set your cut-off time as the time at which you have to have received a booking. If you haven't received a booking by that first cut-off date, you can pull that date off the site. However, once you've got a booking, you have to keep it on there, but then you can set a cut-off time closer to the time at which you're going to run it. So you can just play around a little bit with those cut-off times to suit your experience and how your business runs, really. A lot of that will depend on whether you're running it yourself, perhaps, or whether you're having to hire staff from which to do it and pay staff to do it. It depends on your business model as to how that works for you. Yeah, photography, make it as well as possible, not a snapshot, needs to sum up the experience, and it needs to leave the person with the feeling that they really want to do that. Okay, so I really want to be on Llyn Padarn at that time, where you can get that view. Yeah, insurance, you have to have the relevant insurance and qualifications and accreditation. As I say, you know, we have this issue where people say, well, they've got their mountain leaders qualifications. You know, that's great, that's really good, but you really need the Visit Wales accreditation as well to prove that you are safe to take groups out. It's all very well being able to look after your skills, to look after yourself on the hill, but you need to be able to run the business side of things and to look after your group on the hill. As I say, if that's something you're unsure of, then both Paul and I can advise on the Visit Wales accreditation booking system, sorry. Yeah. So basically, if you are a outdoor provider and you've got your OWLS or your Adventure Mark or you've got an NGB, then it's basically a tick box exercise that you can do an audit. If you haven't got those, then we can arrange for a technical consultant to come out to accredit your business, but there is a fee associated with that. However, having said that fee is actually like a day's business development, in that the people that get sent out are very knowledgeable about running outdoor activity businesses. I've talked about reviews. I'm not going to cover that again. Social influencers and photography. Yeah, as I say, I am happy to think about if there is a demand from Pembrokeshire to see if Visit Wales are happy for me to spend some of my budget on that down there. The influencers we've worked with so far are the Travel Hack, the Outsiders Adventures and Shoot from the Trip. They're quite small, well, apart from the Travel Hack, actually, he's got a significant following, and I think Monica's going to do some more for us in the future. But she tends to be more family orientated. The Outsiders Adventures are 2 girls, sort of 20-something girls who really love the outdoors. They're really good. They have a particular different sort of following. And Shoot from the Trip is a guy from North Wales, again, who's got a particular following. I picked him because he's got an American, quite a following in America, but obviously now all the overseas travel is pretty limited. So I'll go back now to focusing on influencers who have a bigger following in the domestic market. So if you just want to know more about our social media side, we've got an Instagram page, which is at Curious Cymru, and Facebook page. We're not posting at all at the moment. Visit Wales will prefer that we don't do much during lockdown. But as soon as things are lifted, then we'll be getting going again on that. And there's a mixture of films, stories, and what I've tended to do is, as we've had each experience has had an influencer out, then we've done a little story. I forgot what the highlights, isn't it? We've done a highlights specifically on each one, and that's actually attracted quite a lot of attention. That's been quite nice. And again, that's the link, and that's about it really. So if anyone has any other questions, then happy to address them now. Either that, or can I ask if anyone is interested in developing an Airbnb experience in the future?
I think you got a thumbs up from Julia and John over there, which they probably love to hear that when you said foraging is quite trendy. I think both John and Julia have been doing foraging for long before it was trendy, and have a really nice product. So I think they'd be happy to work with you, Emma.
Yeah, no, that would be brilliant. I think some foraging experiences would be really nice. Yeah, I've got a few on my wish list that I'd love to see by the end of the project.
It looks like yeah, sort of Field Studies Council, so it's something they're interested in.
And Field Study Council is a registered
Yes.
charity, so you won't pay your 20%. So definitely potential there for sure.
I have a question, Emma, actually. I'd also, I think for me in the next couple of years, I'll definitely be thinking about starting some sort of experience here as well. So this is all really, really, really useful stuff. And it'd be great to keep in touch. But also just given the current circumstances and possibly what the next, 12 to possibly 24 months will look like in terms of our European and global visitors, and perhaps a decline in that, but obviously our local market. Has anybody been exploring online experiences in this arena?
We looked at them.
Yeah.
Had a couple of people who were interested. I felt that the demand, I did speak to, it was Shona Marsh that I was dealing with as the head of marketing for Northern Europe.
Yeah.
And I have looked at how many what sort of bookings the online experiences are getting, and I felt it was a little bit limited. So I've sort of, if anyone has expressed an interest in doing it, I would encourage them to do it, but it's not something I'm actually pushing that hard.
Yeah, no, that's interesting to hear. I just wondered, there's definitely been a niche for those that were successful. I think as part of my starting on being on this new global board, before Christmas, we had a Christmas party, if you like, for all of us. And we had an online experience with some drag queens in Lisbon, in Portugal, which is the biggest online experience on Airbnb. And they, before obviously all of this, offered an experience in Lisbon where you would be like dragged up. So you could go and they put all your makeup on, they've got like a theatre. So it was a mixture of shows, but the main draw actually was the cooking. And I'm looking at Julia now. They made a Portuguese hot chocolate through a lot of, obviously, like, there was a lot of entertainment, different things going on. But yeah, apparently, especially authentic cooking, local cooking and Italian cooking, and perhaps with a nice backdrop and stuff, apparently has been going very, very well. So I'm just looking at different people that have perhaps got a couple of things they can think about where we're in a bit of this transition time as well. Perhaps sort of IDing, a bit of foraging stuff, looking at seaweeds and different things, and then perhaps cooking for people. And as well as skill and craft work, I think has done okay. But I think I always, that one of my big things with Airbnb is they're quite rubbish sometimes of singing about the good stuff. It's quite difficult, isn't it, to find out about a lot of the really lovely stuff going on. They're not always the greatest, I don't think, at marketing, especially for us. So yeah, that's where I think we need to be much better at it and link up with our local, for us, it's going to be our new kind of Visit Pembrokeshire beast and the parks and things to kind of help promote a lot more about what we're doing in an online capacity as well.
That's good.
I think we're going to look at this for a little bit longer, aren't we, than perhaps we thought. Hopefully we can get together, but people have got bills to pay and things to do, and it's always good to explore different options. But I wonder whether anybody had done anything with you this past sort of 6 months. So yeah, it is.
One person who was thinking of it, actually, interestingly, was someone who she's actually got an experience on, which is the Groceries from the Garden experience. And she was lovely because she was offering, she was taking gardening activities into care homes to do with people pre-lockdown. Of course, that all went out the window once lockdown started. So then she's developed a sort of grow your own guide, so Groceries from your Garden online guide. And then I spoke to her, I said, well, I'm sure you could offer a lovely sort of gardening workshop. She said, well, who'd want to come to my back garden in Denby? And I said, that's exactly what you want, that local experience. I'm so sure you've got a lovely garden. Anyway, sure enough, we sent the photographer out, and it is an amazing little back garden on an estate in Denby, but it's amazing. And she'll be brilliant at it. But she's interested in the Denby plum, and she's interested in making Denby plum vinegar. So she was thinking about doing an online experience based around the Denby plum, which I thought would be really nice. So yeah, I think, yeah, she was interested, but we haven't actually done it yet. And I think we'll see. I think if it looks like this summer is going to be a washout in terms of, hopefully not, but if it does end up as a washout in terms of face-to-face activities, then I will be talking to a lot of the businesses I work with to see what they could do online instead.
Yeah, I think we can probably bet at least the early part of the season, you're not going to have the larger groups. And that's where this kind of targeted as a 10 max might be beneficial, and it might help find some of those smaller groups and things that are out there. But, any of the businesses that have been working with the larger groups in years past, this might be a nice avenue to find some of those smaller groups and some of that new customers to be able to transition. And what was a challenging year last year and could prove to be a challenging year this year again, with the way the world is currently. So I'd like to really thank you, Emma, for providing a whole lot of really amazing knowledge, and hopefully it's quite useful to people.
I think my contact details are in the presentation, so
Right.
feel free to circulate those. Happily, yeah, chat to any of you.